Michael Atkinson. Outback Mike. Welcome.
Thanks.
Hey, I did an intro.
I should explain that what Outback Mike. It's like it's a fairly vomitous. What would you call it? YouTube name, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, I get that that's a fairly vomitous name, but it was designed as a bit of a, I don't know, it's something like when you're looking for a YouTube and you're like, Outback, okay, it's Australian. I want to be associated with Australian, and your name is always a good one to have in there.
Yeah.
So
And Mike.
yeah, but whereas as an Aussie, like I remember there was this reality TV show about some dating show, like, it must have been 10, 20 years ago, called Outback Jack. And I remember seeing the title, I'm like, who's that wanker? Yeah, who would call themselves that? And then I find myself call myself Outback Mike. So I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, I get it.
Yeah, but how did it come up? Who thought of it?
It was actually a mate of mine when I was living in Saudi Arabia, another ex-Australian Air Force pilot. It was his idea, and I actually put it out. So I was living on this base with basically 1,200 people on it, and I kind of had a Facebook group, and I just said, hey, everybody, I'm going to be doing this, a career change, and I want to name, what are your suggestions? And then I got the suggestions, then I said, can everyone vote? And the vote was Outback Mike. And so that was a very international community.
Yeah.
Brits, South Africans, Canadians. So internationally,
That's good.
the audience chose that name. Yeah. But inside Australia, you sound like a wanker.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's fun. But you are Outback Mike. But you've earned it though, haven't you? Come on.
I don't know.
What do you reckon?
It's not the Australian way though. The Australian way is not to call yourself something that makes you sound good.
Yeah.
And that, in a way, like it's anti-good calling yourself something like that. Yeah. But at the end of the day, like I just chose that because that was what the vote came back as. Yeah. And so I'm still kind of torn about it. Like,
but you're stuck with it now.
Well, yeah.
But not really. Yeah. You got a good name. You can be called the Castaway, the modern day Castaway.
Yeah.
This is your book. Yeah, I just finished that. Really good book, man.
Thanks.
We'll get onto that. But yeah. So it's and I like how you read it as well, narrated it, because I listen to books. I read too, but I tend to fall asleep sometimes.
Yeah.
When I got the time to read, so I listen to books. I do stuff around the house.
Well, I reckon I could have done better with reading it is before I read it, I YouTubed how to read an audio book, and you're supposed to read it 155 words per minute, and I normally speak faster, so the rate that I'm speaking at now, I'm guessing is probably 200 words a minute. I don't know, but that's the pace that I normally speak at. Okay. So when you have to slow down, it takes a bit of the emotion out of your voice, and you're also reading. So that if I did it again, I would probably just read it faster.
The way you are.
And yeah, exactly the way I am, because I don't speak slowly.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm the same. No, but you sound like an AI. Yeah, you get more like a robot, don't you, when you read it?
Yeah,
you go slower.
You go slower, and you're like, and then if you've got enough time to figure out, how do I normally say that word? Whereas normally you just speak and they just come out. And like I skip like probably every 10th syllable, and like when like it auto transcribes your captions, like it's always wrong because I just don't speak very well. Like a lot of Australians, we just skip stuff. And
we're lazy.
Yeah, we're lazy. Yeah.
So that's the Australian way.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, well, speaking of, you're not lazy. You're far from lazy, man. I still want to start with this canoe. Like, you'd spend a year digging out a canoe.
Yeah, I didn't want to spend a year. I was hoping it would take 4 months.
And that was through COVID, though? Was that
it was,
before the first lockdown?
It was...
Because you sailed the second one.
Yeah, that's right. So the log arrived in my yard the day that New South Wales locked down.
Yeah, the first one.
The first...
2020.
Yeah, it was March 20th or something when the log came off into my yard, and that was the day when it kind of locked down properly. I'll just very quickly explain previously. Like, so I watched the Bush Tucker Man and Top Gun and wanted to be a pilot in the like.
Yeah, that's why I want to get to that. Well,
I was just going to describe how I got to making the canoe.
Okay,
we'll go back to that later.
Yeah,
but
sure.
It's kind of like I had those things. I'd done a lot of the piloting stuff, and then I wanted to make films, and so I researched historic survival scenarios. So I wanted to place myself in the shoes of this shipwreck survivor from 1846.
What was James? No.
James Morrill.
Morrill, yeah.
Yeah. And he legitimately came ashore in Queensland, south of where Townsville is now. And he survived this shipwreck, sole survivor, was joined Aboriginal Society for 17 years. Learned their language and all that kind of stuff. And then he reassimilated into European society, wrote a book, and that's how I know what he took onto the raft roughly and what his experience was like. And I didn't want to copy what he did, but I just wanted to see if I could start with the materials he had to escape. And then I had to figure out where to escape to. And I discovered after a research trip that they would escape to this island north of Cape York called Booby Island. And it's like, okay, well, how do I get there? okay, I'll make a canoe. And to be honest, I wanted to make a canoe, and I was kind of looking for a scenario that would allow me to make a canoe. So that's where I like, okay, I need a canoe, and it needs to be something, the kind of tree that he could find, and I've got to use the tools that he had. So that's
wow. So there's no power tools. You use a few power tools, was it?
Oh, I did use power tools so I would do every first step completely with hand tools.
Yeah.
And then for repeat steps, I would use power tools to speed it up. That way I know that I could have made the whole canoe with no power tools, but it would have just taken a lot longer.
Way too long. Because you cut out the wedges, I saw that.
Yeah. And I was using
Yeah,
chainsaws
that's
and everything.
tough,
but the first section of each, I would dig out like a 2 foot by 1 foot square, and then realize, okay, yeah, I can do that with an adze. I'll speed it up with a chainsaw. But he also could have had a tribe of people potentially helping him, whereas I was one dude. Normally,
one person in your backyard.
It takes a village months to build a canoe.
Yeah.
So I was just one dude.
That was a lot of work. I thought you were done. You kept digging.
Oh yeah.
It was like steel, and then you had the little parts.
Oh yeah. Well, see, I just thought to begin with it would be a fairly simple canoe, and I hoped 4 months I should be right. But I kept on thinking, because I know the conditions up there. I've been in small boats a lot in Northern Australia, and I know how scary the seas are. Like I was in a cyclone once in a small boat, and I saw these big waves coming, and that was the image in my mind as I was making the canoe. And I was looking at the sides of the canoe going, it's not high enough. Waves will come over the side. What if a croc comes over here? So I kept increasing the goalpost, shifting the goalpost the whole time, because I knew that what it wasn't safe enough yet. And that's why it took 14 months. Yeah. If I'd known it would have taken 14 months, I wouldn't have started.
Yeah, you got to keep going.
Yeah, that's right.
Far out, man. Yeah. That's so dedicated, so committed.
Well, I committed. Like, if you've spent 5 months, it'd be pretty crazy to then waste that 5 months and give up and do something else. So
a lot of people would, though.
Well, I guess I'd put all my eggs in that basket, and I was committed from the beginning. Now, I still would have pulled out of the trip if I thought it was too risky. Yeah. And I did have an abort point halfway through the trip, and I decided to continue. It was a very marginal decision. So I don't like when people think, oh, you just commit to a plan and you just stick to it and you never change it. Like, I'm always open to changing a plan and saying no, and even looking like an idiot if you back out of something. But it would have had to have been a pretty good reason to not do it. Yeah.
And that trip, that was the book.
Basically the first chapter is about my life and how I got to that stage, and the rest of it's that trip.
Yeah. So there was a bit of there's a lot of stuff that went wrong as well.
Oh yeah, lots of things. Yeah, I mean, just building the canoe, like there was wood borers, and having to kill those, and the canoe was cracking, and there was all these issues. The rudder had a problem in it, and then when I tested it, I had to get rescued by the cops.
Yeah.
Towed in. That was my one and only test sail in the open ocean, so it wasn't ideal.
And it was during COVID where they thought you were crossing the border. Was that right?
Oh no, that was. I had to speed up the final packing and preparations because I knew that the Queensland border was about to close again. Okay. And I literally made it across with, I think, less than 24 hours to spare before it closed again. Bang, for another few months.
That to face as well.
Yeah, and so that added a lot of pressure, and pressure is risk. If you have a time pressure, you have to cut corners and not be as thorough as you would be. Yeah. And so I was exposed to more risk because of COVID.
Yeah, and then you had your drone to deal with too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's lots of issues with the drone and keeping all that stuff.
So you're doing it by yourself, and you're filming as well. Yeah. And surviving and fishing and.
Yeah, and in some ways the filming takes at least a third of your daily effort.
Yeah.
So it is a bit unrealistic to be filming yourself. So that is something to factor in. Like, I could do a harder expedition if I wasn't filming myself.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's why a lot of people, like my mate Luke Richmond, he just writes books because he just records what he does into a dictaphone, and then he goes back and writes it later, and it doesn't interfere with his expedition. Yeah, okay. Whereas I go into it going, I want to tell a story here for a reason. It's not just, there's messages I can get out about, the environment or cultural stuff. So it's important to go through all that pain to get something that's worth watching, I think.
I think it's brilliant, man. Great TV, and I know we're going to get back and forth. I do that. But the documentary, Surviving the Outback. So that's another one, right?
Yep.
That's separate. Yep. That's fantastic. Like I was saying to Nick, like, that documentary is brilliant, man. Just how there was two pilots. So you reenact. So it was the same. So two pilots crashed. Is that right?
They ran out of fuel.
Out of fuel. Okay.
So I only reenact the start conditions of someone's survival situation, and then I survive my way out, which is kind of like what Bear Grylls kind of says, but I actually do it.
Yeah, so, that's the thing. You do it.
Yeah. And which is why it's, I think, interesting, because most people's intuition is that what you see on those kinds of shows I don't want to pick specifically on him, but if you watch shows on commercial television, you really shouldn't believe much about what you see.
I agree.
Yeah. And so that's why it's important. And when I film myself, that people know that I'm filming myself. And quite a lot of people said, we don't believe that you're filming yourself. How did you get that shot? How did you get that shot? That's why I do spend a minute, like I did in that one, just showing people how I got those shots.
Yeah, really good.
And you also don't want all your shots to be too perfect, because you want people to realize that, you're filming it. Of course, you're not going to get the perfect angle, and you're not going to get you're going to get wind in the audio and stuff.
Yeah.
So there'll be times when there's nothing much happening, and I can get a really nice professional cameraman looking shot. But there's other times where shaky GoPro footage and me swearing and the shit audio is better, because that's all I can get. I'm lucky to even have the thing on, Yeah. So
even catching it from the boat.
Yeah.
When you had, but this was it. This one you put the handle. Was it this one? No, which one did you put the handle? You changed it.
Yeah, so I on this trip I used a bit of pool noodle underneath, which is really, it works so well.
Yeah,
and that's the only way I could catch the drone in on that first one. So I applied lessons from that Kimberley surviving the Outback one to this. So some of the catches I've got are really good.
Man, beautiful, mate.
But other ones are like I'm struggling for ages, trying to catch, and then I'm almost crashing and trying to sail it backwards, because I have to sail the canoe facing backwards so I can see the drone. And then I'm trying to drive the canoe backwards and fly with my fingers on the drone, and then I have to release the drone controller to reach up. So it's like crazy difficult.
And you put the little pouch that you made, a little pouch, so I can sit there perfect. So you got to think of these little things.
Yeah. And a lot of that comes back to visualizing the issues as a pilot. A lot of pilot preparing for missions as a pilot is visualizing what will happen, and then realizing in that visualization process that you don't have a solution to the problem that's going to come up.
Yeah.
And so because I'd done that Kimberley expedition, I knew what kind of problems might arise, so that way I could be a bit more stepped up for this one, knowing what to expect.
Yeah, well, that Kimberley one was really good. Even when you went on foot as well, and you did the drone shot and there was nothing around.
Yeah.
You just went up and up and up and there's nothing around.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you survive bush tucker?
Yeah, well, there's a fair bit in the Kimberley. It's arid, the Kimberley, but there's enough there. But you can quickly eat out those resources, like those window pane shells. So I was in one spot for a week on that expedition, as I made the catamaran out of the seaplane plates, which I created with a welder somewhere else.
Yes.
So I had to sustain myself during that time. There were these big shells. They're kind of like a big oyster, a big flat oyster, called a window pane shell. And when the tide was low, I discovered, look at this thing, it's massive. It's, the size of a large mobile phone, but round. And so I picked one of them up and I ate it. That was great. And then the next day I went out and got 10. And by the end of the week, this area of mudflats, which is probably, half a square kilometre, I'd taken all of the window pane shells out of that and I couldn't find any more. So that goes to show how quickly you run out of resources in an area. And that's why Aboriginal people used to move around, because they'd know that, okay, we'll go back to that bay, the window pane shells will be ready. We won't take all of them, we'll just take half of them, and then we'll move on to the next place, because that new food source is ready. And that's one thing I've learned. And I've got a friend of mine that runs a survival company where he takes people to desert islands and they survive on the island. And he's like, we can only take people there for maybe 4 weeks of the year because they'll run out of the resources. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. See, that's you. Okay. Far out. So, okay. Pilot. Let's go. So you were in the army, or you were in the Air Force, sorry.
Both. Yeah.
Yeah. And what were you doing there? What was your...
Well, so I watched Top Gun when I was 13. That's when I thought, Top Gun. I want to be Tom Cruise. Like you got to
look a bit like Tom Cruise. Hey, what are you thinking?
So, but when you're deciding what to do, I'm trying to think in my mind. I reckon it was 50% I want to be Tom Cruise, and this is only reverse engineering what I was thinking at the time. And the other 50% is I want to fly a fighter plane. There's two separate things. There's an image of a guy doing cool stuff.
Yeah.
And that's in some ways the kind of a bit of a junkie thing. To be aspiring to be someone because of coolness is a separate thing to aspiring to do something because it's genuinely cool. Yeah. Both aspects of it I liked. But I wanted to be a pilot, and I also watched the Bush Tucker Man. Do you know who the Bush Tucker Man is?
Yeah, that was before. Yeah, I do know him. Yeah. When was he around? Is it 80s?
It was 80s.
Yeah.
That was prime time.
Yeah, because I was born in 81. So I remember him, but I never got into him. But I know...
Yeah, because they might have finished airing on TV.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, they were airing on TV, and I was just like, that's the coolest thing ever.
So that's what got you into this sort of stuff too.
Yeah, well, that's why the two things, like I wanted to do both things, but being a fighter pilot is a young man's game.
Yep.
So I went for that first, and I did well at school and all that stuff. And so I was shocked not to get in.
Yeah.
Because I just did one of the aptitude tests. I didn't. I actually made a consistent error throughout the test based on negative habit transfer from a computer game that I played at my mate's place, which had artificial horizons in it. And it, if you're into aviation, it had a ground pointer as opposed to a sky pointer. And basically, I realised halfway through the test, and I didn't have time to fix them all up. So that killed me for that year of application. So I joined the Air Force as an airfield defence guard, which is like an army job. They defend the airfield.
Okay.
So it was called the Ready Reserve Scheme. So I did a year of that. And then during that year, I applied again, thinking, okay, I'll get in this time. And I passed all the tests, but they raised the pass mark because I'd seen them before. And I was still, to be honest, not that focused. I was quite under pressure in the test, and my mind was thinking as I was doing the test, gee, I hope I'm fast enough. And now I identify that as a lack of focus now. What I should have been thinking about purely was the questions on the test, how much time I had left, how to prioritize my time, what's the question asking. But coming into my mind half the time was, if I stuff this up, the consequences will be bad. I'll have to wait another year.
So you're thinking too far ahead. You're thinking of negative stuff.
Well,
instead of focus on the job.
It's not so much that is part of it, the negativity, but it's the fact that my mind, your mind is a single channel processor. So if you're doing a task and it's being diverted to non-necessary tasks that are not relevant to that time, you don't perform as well. So that is called a lack of focus. And I didn't realize at the time. I didn't realize it till 10 years later when I was an instructor in the Air Force, and someone talked about that, a sports psychologist at a development seminar. So basically, because of the pressure, I allowed the pressure to affect my performance, and I didn't do that well. So I'll come back to when I finally got through and how I got through.
Yeah.
So after not getting in again, I traveled the world for a year, and then my mate was flying a lot in helicopters as a geologist. So I decided to do a geology degree, and we would buy a chopper together, and then we'd be our own exploration company. Having that alternative path to at least being a pilot, that reduced the pressure. So then the third time when I saw those tests, I was focused fairly well, and I ended up getting through the test, and then I got in as a pilot. So then
nice,
but it wasn't as the Air Force, it was as the Army, because the Air Force wasn't taking any pilots at that stage.
Okay.
So I will come back to the focus thing later though, because it's, actually I might as well cover it now, because
Yeah,
it's an
whatever,
important thing that a
mate.
lot of people can learn from.
This is why, yeah.
So another example of lack of focus was when I did my driving test. I was quite nervous, and I accelerated. I was in a school zone in Canberra, and I turned left, and the school was now behind me. So I accelerated up to 60 k's an hour, and then I saw the 60 sign. I'm like, oh no, I accelerated to 60 before I got to the 60 sign. So I broke the speed limit in the 40 zone, and then for the rest of the test, I was thinking, oh, have I failed that test for that thing or not? And then because I was focused on that, I made another mistake. I can't even remember what it was. And at the end, the guy goes, yeah, look, obviously you sped up a bit earlier. If it had just been that, I probably would have let you go through, but because you made this other mistake. And so this is only analysing that situation later. And this is what made me analyse it. So later on as an instructor, so I was an Army chopper pilot for like 6 years, lots of things in that time, including becoming a survival instructor and a bunch of other stuff, which gave me some qualifications and experience. Then this one-off kind of opportunity came up to transfer to the Air Force, and I'd secretly been trying to transfer to become a fast jet pilot, but they wouldn't take me because they had no way of assessing me. So by me just having this opportunity to go as an Army guy allowed me to be assessed and then get selected for fast jet.
Yeah.
But as I was doing my transfer to learn how to fly this Air Force plane where I could instruct Air Force pilots on, I found myself, I got through it, I had to work very hard, but I wasn't that well focused. And then after I'd been an instructor for maybe a year and a half, we went to this development seminar, and they had a sports psychologist from the States, and he'd worked with Tiger Woods and, I don't know, big NBA stars and stuff like that. And he goes, he's talking about focus. And focus to me was a bit of a wank word. I didn't understand what it was, but he explained what it was. And it's what percentage of your brain space is devoted to the task in that time critical situation. That's the way to get the most out of your brain. So he had this picture of Tiger Woods on the projector at the 18th hole, ready to hit the shot, and it's all these crowd of people around him, and he's going, what's Tiger thinking at the moment? Is he thinking that if he slices his shot, he's going to hit that old lady in the head? If he gets a bad, I don't know, score on this one, he's going to lose his number one ranking? Gee, the wind's really strong. So, he's scared about the conditions. If he was thinking that, his brain wouldn't be optimized to the task. What he should be thinking about is, what club do I need? Like, what range is it? What is the wind? How much do I need to offset to the left? What's the grass surface like? It shouldn't enter his mind about those negative thoughts, because they would draw your mind away. So he has in his mind 3 things that he thinks of as soon as he starts to detect those negative thoughts, which are taking his focus away. And in the NBA, they have rubber bands around their wrist, and as soon as they have a negative thought, they flick the rubber band, and then they have to go through the mantra, and that's helps them stay focused.
Yeah.
So, and those 3 things that you tell yourself need to be something truthful about yourself, which shows that you are good at what you do. So he would say, I'm Tiger Woods. There's a crosswind, but I practice my crosswind game better than anybody else. Rather than worrying about hitting that old lady in the head, like, if anyone can do this, I can, because I'm bloody good at this. And this is my opportunity to show everybody how good I am. If he's got that kind of focus, his mind doesn't get dragged away off the task, and he can focus on what he's doing.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's what you would be doing when you're out there by yourself.
A little bit. I mean, I don't suffer from a lack of focus doing that stuff for some reason. I think it's kind of practice. But where I applied that technique in aviation was when as an Army guy who was instructing in the Air Force, and I put my hand up and said, hey, I want to fly a fast jet. So I had to go and do quite a difficult ride with the CEO of the unit, where he, threw all these things at me. And, as someone who got quite nervous and failed their driving test, it would have been easy for me to, like, be in that kind of submissive, not sure, I hope this isn't going well, all that kind of stuff. I basically used that technique and went, right, what is it? I'm Mike. I've done some pretty good stuff, like good performance as a helicopter pilot in East Timor. I'm practiced at this. I know what I'm doing. And it was almost like if the instructor or the CEO who's testing me, if he interjects, I'll be like, yes, sir, understand. I'm doing this because I've made a plan. I'm positive. I'm taking control. And so I applied that, and the mission went well, and I got selected for fast jet. Oh, awesome. So that was an example of me not focusing well, understanding there is ways to get around it and improving my performance. And so after that, as a senior instructor, effectively, or someone that instructs other instructors, I would constantly come across, or they would give you the students that were had failed and were about to get removed, and I would go through, and I reckon 2/3 of them going through that process and explaining it helped them, and they even come back years later and just go, thanks so much.
Yeah, that's great.
That. I mean, another guy that I was instructing in Saudi Arabia, he just approached me the other day, and he ended up sending me like $2,000 just saying, mate, if you hadn't had that chat with me about that specific thing, I wouldn't have got through that, and I just want to help out in some way. And I was like, oh, no, mate. And he's like, no, I really need to, because I'm now earning all this money in Saudi Arabia, and I just want to give back. And really, it wasn't my message. I was just passing on someone else's message.
But that's nice, man.
Yeah,
that's good. Yeah, that's so nice. That's grateful, isn't he? He's been grateful.
Yeah, he's been grateful, and I'm grateful for that. Whoever that sports psychologist was for letting me know, because it helped me out.
Yeah, it's passing on the knowledge.
Yeah,
and like you do it. Saudi Arabia too. What's that? Surviving? I didn't even watch that one. Surviving Saudi Arabia.
I haven't edited it. So while I was there, I bought my own camels and crossed the desert using just Bedouin stuff. And I had like...
And you love it, Nick? Is he the best? Sorry, guy. I love it. Yeah, okay.
Well, because I always wanted to do a crossing of Australia with wild camels.
Yeah.
And so I thought it'd be silly to be in Saudi Arabia and not learn about camels.
Yeah.
So I bought a mother, and I wanted to live like a Bedouin, so I needed a camel that was milking, and it turns out they need to have a baby. They need to be lactating, so I needed a baby too. So I bought a mother with a baby, and it was a bit of a nightmare. I was quite short on time, but I tried crossing this desert, and I filmed everything, and it didn't quite work out. There was a poor year for feed, and it was a bit of a shit fight, really. I ended up getting more than halfway across the desert, and then the camel refused to keep going. So it would only walk back in the other direction. So we walked a long way back across the desert.
Oh, no.
To get out the other side, yeah. So, but once again, yeah, that was a documentary that I shot after I did that Kimberley one, but didn't have the time to edit it because I was coming back to Australia and wanted to get this canoe one out of the way.
Yeah. So you still got to edit that?
Yeah.
So I'm going to turn this off. This is what happens. Okay. So how many, like, you just keep going. Like, you got a family, you're married,
yep.
You got kids, obviously.
Yep.
But, like, your freedom, like, that's so nice. You get the good support.
Yeah, well, so I guess the freedom came, the freedom of the last 5 years has come from how much money I earned tax-free in Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
So that definitely helped. And I've seen it, like when I grew up, my dad started a fishing tour business and we went bankrupt. And
You want to talk about your dad, yeah.
Yeah. And so like that was at a pivotal, I was a teenager then, and we kind of got moved out of our house, and that was quite a stressful thing financially for me. So, and that was pursuing film related stuff. And so there's a kind of, I was quite conscious of that I didn't want that same thing to happen to my family. So I was like, I wouldn't do that unless we were secure.
Yeah.
And then I could go and do that. And so that going to Saudi Arabia, once again, a bit of luck that was a possibility, but it was. So I did.
Yeah.
And that just allowed to, pay the house off and have a little bit left over kind of thing.
So you can do your thing. So that's what keeps people, isn't it? The bills.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
The mortgage, the rent.
Yeah. People with, the mortgage, that it just traps so many people, that mortgage thing.
Yeah. and obviously family's good, but to have that support from your partner or wife as well.
Yeah.
To sort of, I'm talking with Nick, like people that they just want to go and do something, they're not allowed, they feel like it's wrong. But
yeah,
you're sort of just doing so many things. It's like so inspiring,
Well, I am lucky that my wife, Melinda, is, I don't like using the word allow. It's a little bit, yeah. But she's supportive and she doesn't say no. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And part of that is, I think, because from the very beginning, like I was honest about all the stuff that I do. So like I met her in Canberra. She was working in selling real estate, and I just happened to go into this thing looking for investment properties and stuff. And then second date, like I said, let's go to the Kimberley. So she flew up to Darwin, and I took my tinny out. We did a 500k tinny trip, and got dropped out on the coast in a helicopter and walked back. Because it's like, to me, that's the coolest kind of thing. And I'd kind of realised that there isn't much point pretending to be somebody else.
Yep.
I'm better off showing them what I do, and if they don't like it, then
that's the best.
So she knew what she was getting into from the beginning.
Yeah.
So that was helpful. And also, because I have put a lot of effort in getting the finances sorted, it's easier to sell. Like it's a harder sell when it's like, hey, I'm going to leave what I'm doing. We've got mortgage to pay. It's not going to work. Yeah. And even the last 5 years has been a little bit on the austere side financially, even though there's a bit of money in the bank, I'm trying to save it, because having been in that situation of no financial security, I'm always, what's the next thing that's going to happen? Is it?
It's a big risk, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a risk, and things can get cut out from underneath you quite quickly.
Yeah. So I think you just don't fear, do you? You just go for it.
Oh no, I definitely fear. Yeah. So I'm a fearful person, but I just think very carefully about what the risks are, and then I just make calculated risks.
Okay.
So like I'm shitting my pants most of the time. Yeah.
You don't see it though, do you? You're so calm. Like I've never seen, even your teeth. I said to my partner, I said, his teeth are so beautiful and white. He's on surviving and you're biting things and stuff. You're like so calm and Tom Cruise looking bloke,
No, I'm not. Well, I think in outdoor situations, you do become calmer after a while just through exposure, because all I'm doing is focusing on what do I need to do. There's 10 things I need to do here. What's coming up, 10 things in advance that I can just adjust a little bit now and save a disaster. And that is, so basically when you get really flappable, oh my God, what's going on? You're not focusing, because you're going, what's my wife going to think if I die? Oh, my son's going to, it's a lack of focus. So I guess now I am quite practiced at applying focus.
Yeah.
So there is no point flapping about anything.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, this will happen, that'll happen. And it's more like, fire, I'm about to freaking die here. That's, anyway, let's concentrate on what I'm doing.
Well, yeah, because you're putting yourself out there, like to, crocodiles and everything by yourself as well. Like, I know you had a tracking thing you were saying that you touch base every day. Is that right? So your family know where you are, that you're around.
And that's
important.
Yeah, that's important for two reasons. It's important for them, because otherwise I could just disappear. On this example with a dugout canoe, I could just disappear for months and never hear from you again. And they would just, then also if they had to search for me, the authorities would be looking everywhere. It'd be wasting their time massively, right? Like if that hiker that got lost at the start of the month, he didn't have one of those things, and there's massive search. For me, the search area would have been from, Cooktown to Cape York.
Yeah.
Would have been a nightmare. Whereas if I leave my little breadcrumb trail of the satellite tracker, which doesn't interfere with the authenticity of my trip, because I just press the button on it, every once or twice a day. And mum knows where I am. So there's that side of it. But I know, they just know, Mike's still alive, because beep, it comes in every day.
Yeah, but even that, for them being home too,
Yeah, but the good thing is they definitely do worry.
Yeah.
But they do know that I am quite careful about what I do. So I think that helps.
Well, if I was to go anywhere, I'd be with you for sure, mate. So you fish. You even make bow and arrows out of trees and the rope, out of the bark. Like, how'd you learn? This was learnt from the army, or you've always liked that because you did trout fishing with your dad. You were saying early days, so you've always been outdoors sort of a bloke.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up like I used to make bow and arrows as a kid. I don't even
Before Xbox, PlayStation.
Yeah, before that stuff, and I just wasn't really into conventional toys. I wasn't into conventional sports, and my dad was into fishing, and my mate across the road that I did all my adventures with, he was into fishing. So, and we lived in Canberra, but it was a big backyard. It backed on a bushland, and there was this big area at the back that we called the gully. It was an abandoned highway cutting, so we would make bows and arrows and even exploding bows and arrows, and we'd just experiment with whatever we wanted to do. And my mum was very just tolerant of letting us do things and not, not saying, no, you can't do that. So we learned to manage risk quite early on and know the consequences. So the reason I would not do something is not because I would get in trouble. It's because my fingers might explode if that wick's too short. You know what I mean? So, which is a healthy thing, and that's what kids get denied these days. You can't even learn how to fall on a playground because the playground's so safe you can't even fall off it.
This is why a big reason why I do this. As like back in the 70s and 80s, you were to go out. Go out and explore. But now, it's just safety. It's like everyone's worried. Everyone's bubble wrapped. All the kids are bubble wrapped.
Which then exposes them to more risk because they don't know how to mitigate it or even identify it to begin with.
Yeah.
So that's when something comes along, whether it's drugs or driving a car or doing whatever, they're like a dog that's had a lead around the neck and they're constantly pulling at the chain, and then someone just cuts the leash and they just run off and get run over by a car.
Yeah.
Whereas if you don't have a leash on as a dog, you've got to realise that if I run off, I've got to manage my risks as I go,
It's like having locks on doors for kids in the cupboard, in the kitchen. I've never understood that.
Yeah. And
it's like, I don't understand every door's locked. Whatever parents out there do that, no offence, but I don't get that because you're not teaching them not to open don't open that, or that's hot, or this and that.
Yeah, because the parents are worried that there's sharp knives in there. Whereas if in third world countries, you see kids playing with knives all the time as toddlers. They don't cut themselves because they've learnt very early on that they cut themselves.
Exactly. So when they become adults, at least they know.
Yeah, and they know how to use a knife so that doesn't come towards them. We just deny everybody every opportunity to learn about risk and then expect them to just deal with it when they turn 18.
Yeah, that's right. And also know what I like to, you've taken your kids out. You got a daughter and a son?
Yep.
The teenagers?
Yeah, they're 14 and 16.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So good.
Yeah, they're not
camping on the rock.
Yeah. That was last
so
week.
The winds came. It was a see-through tent. That was awesome.
Yeah.
So what do you? So they follow you as well. They like going out. You take them out there a lot.
They're not like me. Like when I was their age, I would have been champing at the bit to do everything that I'm doing now. But they're not. My daughter's probably more into it. My son is definitely not into it like I am, but that's okay. Like I don't want to pressure him into it. Yeah. But they do want to go. They understand that it's not fun all the time. But he asked me, like, can we do like a 4-day hike these holidays and stuff? And most of the time he's not enjoying himself, but he still wants to do it because he understands the reward.
That's so good.
It's somehow rewarding. He probably hasn't quantified in his mind how it's rewarding, but he's like, can we go hiking? So that's an important thing. And so I've been hiking with him since he was, we were camping since he was a baby. But like I did the South Coast track in Tasmania when he was 3 years old. It's this remote track. You have to get flown in. You have to charter a plane, get dropped into this airfield and walk along the coast. And he was 3, still in nappies, and he was just on my hip. And then I'd put him down on the ground and then put him back on my hip and just carry him along. And there was other hikers on the track. And I remember there was a lady on the plane when we got off. She was on the same plane that got chartered. And I did notice a couple of looks from her, and I did remember thinking subconsciously, I don't think she's that impressed with what I'm doing. And then we walked a lot. We got halfway along the track, and then we got hit by a bit of a really bad storm, really. And I ended up turning around and coming back out because I didn't want him to have a bad experience. So we somehow came across this lady again halfway through the trip. We just happened to be cooking 2-minute noodles at the same site. And I saw her looking at me, and then she came over and she goes, I just want you to know, when I saw you getting off the plane with your child, I thought, this what an irresponsible man. She was judging me.
Yeah, of course.
And then she'd seen that we'd actually lasted halfway through this trip, and she could see that we were having a great time, and he was, enjoying the noodles. And he goes, I just think it's really good what you're doing. And I think she said, I'm sure your wife must really not support this, but if you like, I'm happy if you give me her number, I'll get out of here and tell her this is actually a good thing that you're doing.
Really?
Yeah.
How was that?
Yeah, which is good. So she did judge.
Yeah, of course.
And judge harshly, but she also had the courage to go, you know what?
Yeah.
I can see the benefit now. So that was a really nice thing for her to say, and educational for me, because it does prove that when I get those looks, they really are judging.
Of course. Oh, if that's what, of course. Yeah, because that's not by the book, right?
Yeah.
Shouldn't bring your child out there.
Yeah, and there is a thing about, what would men know about looking after kids?
Yeah.
I don't like that. It's not fair, and it's often, it's okay to make those comments. And also, I mean, women also get judged as well.
Yeah.
So when I was doing something over in Panama, I was instructing survival with another young lady called Naomi. She was on the UK version of Alone.
I saw that one. On the island, we had a group of people.
Yes, yeah. And so we had this conversation, and I was telling her about that. And she's going, as men, we get judged. And she was like, yeah, we do as well as women as well. So I'm like, yeah, you're right. Women get judged and shamed.
Yep.
So she gets shamed as being a woman that does stuff with her kids. And she gets shamed by other women's, like, oh, why aren't you with your son? So it's like, yeah, we're both shaming without realizing it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, that judgment.
Yeah, and you don't realize I hadn't quite seen that perspective that she had until she gave it. I'm like, yeah, good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
But men do get shamed. There's a thing about like, oh, what would a man know about the needs of a child? Fair bit, actually.
I've been a single dad for 7 years. Yeah, so I get the judgment, but I don't know. We can do it. It's not bad,
and it's important for both kids of both sexes to have time with their dads.
Yeah, of course.
And it's also good, like with my wife, like we go camping and stuff with the kids. It's actually good having the kid by themselves, not with a sibling, because when there's two of them, there's competition between them. But when you're by yourself, they can talk about stuff that they wouldn't talk about if their sister was there. So I try to go camping with my daughter separately and my son separately, and then with them both together. Yeah. But there's a lot of things, particularly for young boys. They're supposed to be brought up in a tribe where they see guys doing things, and it's not there would be a negative side going, oh, it's just men trying to be macho. It's like, well, that's how you used to survive. And so maybe you don't need to be macho to survive in today's society, but boys need an example of what you're supposed to do, and dad's calm, or if dad's like flapping and hopeless and this is bullying, you know what I mean?
Yes.
He's not gonna. So it's passing on like, okay, well, dad's comfortable in this situation. I guess it can't be that bad.
Yeah, and that's what I think kids should learn too. Like, hunting and gathering. That's what we are, And I think that's what I think what you do and what you show the kids as well, and taking your kids along, it's brilliant. I reckon, like with all the world chaos at the moment, if something happens, what would people do?
Yeah.
You know what to do. Like, you're the best person to do it. Like, what would people do if the phones go off or there's no food to eat?
Yeah. And even if it's not just like prepping for the bad thing that's coming, which it probably is at some stage with AI, right?
Yeah.
But even aside from that, just from being happy as a human, like Aboriginal people, Captain Cook described them as happier than we Europeans, because they were living a life that was pretty cool. Like, they surrounded by pretty cool nature. There was, you could spear a fish, you'd have a fight with the neighbouring tribe occasionally, but you spent heaps of family time. There was lots of songs and dance and laughter. And he observed that, and he said they're happier than Europeans.
Yeah.
And so that's that's where humans spent most of the last, 500,000 years of evolution in that space. So our minds are used to that level of interaction, that level of risk, that level of problem solving. And if you remove that, and all you do is sit in front of a screen and you don't experience it.
This thing here, mate.
Yeah,
I turned it off and it's still vibrating. You know what I mean? Like, it does. It gets your attention, mate. It's ridiculous, And that's the thing. What I'm afraid of, the young generation.
Yeah.
You said AI's coming into it. They can. I just think going into nature is the best thing for anyone, really, especially the children, the kids.
Yeah, I think for mitigating the risk of mental health stuff as well.
Oh, yeah.
Like the resilience that you learn but just, it's wet and it's rainy. You're hiking through Tassie. You're cold. You're hungry. This sucks. But at the end of the day, it's not that bad. And yeah, so the hardest thing in your life, that if you do something that's really hard in your life, when other things come along, if you can compare them and go, it's not actually that bad. Yeah, a mate of mine uses the term like, what's your low watermark? So a pilot mate of mine had a very premature child, and they went through absolute hell, like in many, many ways. But he says that's my low watermark, and really nothing else that comes across him in life can be anywhere near as hard as that. So he gets a lot less stressed. Whereas if you're never exposed to anything hard, because you just you've been denied the chance to experience any risk, you're in front of your phone. The worst thing that happened to you might have been someone that wasn't your friend, perhaps. And like social difficulties can be extremely difficult. But so that's probably not the best example. But if you haven't gone through hardship, something relatively minor will literally be the worst thing that's ever happened to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Look, you're like calm because when you look what you've been through.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Like putting yourself out there. You go everyday life, and nothing really should really bother you. It's all petty stuff, isn't it? Really.
Yeah. And you very quickly. I mean, I very quickly lapsed back into getting wound up about stuff that I shouldn't. Yeah. But it does help having other things that you can go, hey, look, I've been pissed off and stressed all day, but in the big scheme of things, I shouldn't be like that, and I can get myself out of it more easily.
Yeah, and even the patience, like digging a canoe for a year.
Yeah.
Seriously, dedication and commitment. People don't have that, And I'm talking to the Aboriginal as well. You've done a lot with them.
Yeah, fair bit.
Yeah, about the tribal. You're much into that. What have you learnt from that? Like bush tucker and being grateful and, like you said, tribal.
Well, and my initial fascination was from the bush tucker man and learning about bush tucker, and so that was the focus of when I became a pilot. I managed to get into another unit survival course and became a survival instructor, and it was predominantly Aboriginal unit, and so I learned lots of that stuff. So that grounding in that was quite useful. And then later on, this is a bit of a bigger picture of stuff, but the bush that we have, the way that we manage the bush is really bad. And I'd noticed that at age 30 that the bush is full of undergrowth, has these horrendous bushfires. There's no grass in the ground. I know Aboriginal people used to walk through here because that sign back there said that they used to live here, but you can't even walk through here now. So I went searching for answers to why the bush looks the way it does now, and it can't have always looked this way. And that's when I came across, traditional burning and the way that they used to manage the landscape. And that diving in deeply and covering that in my book, and also, coming up with actual references that I can back up when I say things, forced me to research fairly widely on the topic. And then that's what got me to realize more than I ever did how extensive their understanding of all parts of the bush are. It's not just you can eat that, it's the way that they know what animal eats what in every part of the ecosystem, and if you adjust the amount of grass here, it'll have all these different effects throughout the ecosystem. So they have a very good scientific understanding of the bush. If you look at the definition of science, it's understanding through observation, and basically they have a very good scientific ecological understanding. And so when scientists are doing PhDs and on a particular animal or a plant, they'll get Aboriginal people to go and show up because they can't see them, they can't find them. They need Aboriginal people to do it. Now, unfortunately, for most Aboriginal people, they've been deliberately removed off their lands, forbidden from speaking language and practicing those cultural ways. So it's hard to come across Aboriginal people that didn't have that taken away from them. But that's where I've focused my efforts, is finding those people and getting that better understanding. And then, if I can, try and relay that message that there is a very deep understanding. And by ignoring that knowledge, we're really not doing the right things for our own happiness and also for the well-being of our plants and animals, really. It makes sense. I mean, they've been here for such a long time. I think that's I don't like using the whole "they've been here for a long time" thing, because it's an argument that gets used all the time and it's easily shot down. Yeah. All I'm saying is that they're human beings that have been living very, very happily, more happily, according to Captain Cook, and with better understanding. And we kind of just blow off everything that they've got to say about it. So if I can get that message across, that's good. No,
it is good, mate. Because when you went to Cape York, was that you saw that sign that was shot at?
Oh yeah,
that was the point Captain Cook came, right?
Actually, just past that. Yeah, so the Cape York sign, as someone shot up with shotgun signs recently. But just beyond that is Possession Island. That's where Captain Cook landed on 22nd August.
What was it like there? What was a feeling? Was a feeling there? People say when they go to these sort of places, you could feel it.
Yeah, I know what you mean about the feeling. Like I'm not religious.
Yeah.
But there is certain times. So perhaps there, but also earlier in the trip, they all went on an island, and there was these paintings that Aboriginal people had made of the tall ships and stuff like that. And I don't know whether it's those paintings that helped my brain visualize the people that were there, or I think it's also because for me, I was researching the massacres that happened on the coast and really going through a grieving process that I didn't realize I had to go through. So I'm feeling the closest to these people that I know what's happened to them. So I don't know whether that feeling is it's probably inside my brain just doing it. I'm not saying there's like an outside force doing these ones.
Yeah.
But I think also with Possession Island, the significance of the place. And I'd also been told to do what's called a chuck talk by the traditional owners, where you get on there and you say, hey, to the old people, the ancestors, my name's Mike, I'm coming onto your island. Now, wouldn't normally do that, but just out of respect to the Aboriginal people, I did it. Yeah. And they asked me to do it, and I filmed myself doing it as well, just to show the process of what you're supposed to do. Yeah. So I don't know. It's
because you would have gone for some personal feel, like to do these trips. You're sort of getting in touch, with nature and yourself, sort of thing, by yourself. Like, what's the thoughts by yourself?
Well, one thing I have a problem with is seeing Mother Nature as an entity. Mm-hmm. I don't like it when people say, if you don't respect Mother Nature, it's going to kick your ass. Now, there's two ways of looking at it. One of these is just like, you could just, in a rational sense, be hit by a cyclone, but the cyclone didn't become because you were mean to somebody in third grade. Yeah. There's not an entity that's dealing out punishment because you're a bad person. Mm. And I think a lot of the time that, without people realizing it, they kind of think that. I'm more of just a rationalist, and I think evolution is the best way to describe how we got here. So I just relate everything to rationality. And so in the human mind, when we have mental illnesses or even autism, for example, there would be, there's an evolutionary reason to have people who think quite differently to everybody else. Because if you come across a certain circumstance, the best person is that one person that's a little bit weird, that only focuses on weird stuff, that comes up with a great solution to something, I mean, look at Elon Musk.
Oh, yeah.
All
of them.
Yeah, well, a lot. Even Bill Gates. I saw something from Bill Gates a couple of days ago saying he knows that if he was assessed now as a child, he would have been assessed as autistic. Yeah. So we need. So I mean, even parts of it in our minds, anxiety, for example. Anxiety is there for a reason. So I'm anxious. I was anxious on that trip about dying because crocodiles would come over the side or the seas were too big, and I'm anxious about it. And I'd stay up all night, many sleepless nights, and then at 2:00 in the morning. 3 weeks later, I'm like, right, I need to do this to the canoe. So the anxiety is saving my life. It's forcing me to run risk management profiles in my head and come up with a solution. So I think we're told to feel bad if you feel stressed. You've failed because you're stressed. It's like, that's wrong, because then people feel more stressed because they feel like they failed because they're stressed. It's like, stress is normal. You should be stressed because it helps you solve problems in your head, which hopefully you'll execute and they won't be problems anymore. You'll solve the problem. Yeah, correct. So I think most of the explanations for things, I think if you understand why there's a problem, you can understand how to fix it. Yep.
And without medication. I find now the young, and I say this plenty of times, just the young ones, I know they're getting told they've got anxiety and stress at 16 and everything, but they're told by the doctors and medicated instead of dealing with it. Like, we've all got something. Yeah. But by doing this, nature, working at solutions and thinking of like the way you think, to me, is the best way to overcome any of this stuff: stress, anxiety, fear. Like you say, you fear all the time, but you're dealing with it. You're jumping into the storm, and you're dealing with it. You're not sitting and getting medicated and getting told you have a problem and that's it.
Yeah, medication for psychological stuff. I would be fairly reticent to do anything like that. I mean, I understand if you got a cold, you can take, I don't know, you can't take anything for a cold, but the medicine works, right? It's not, but for psychological treatment, a lot of that I'll be like, far out.
Band-Aids it.
Yeah, and then what do you know? It's creating it's just creating another problem, which then needs more medication. And all of a sudden you find yourself
you're on the system, mate.
Yeah, luckily I've had no experience with that stuff, but it just doesn't seem smart.
Well, you seem that's the best thing to do.
Yeah, exactly.
I do labour hire. I do labour hire, and the young ones coming through, all seriously, have a lot of blaming mental problems for not working and so on. They're getting told this, and then they're getting slack, and it's like, go out.
Yeah.
Go out and do what you do, Yeah. And they'll come back better.
Yeah. And they'll be less likely to, if they've been taken outdoors and experienced those things, they'll be better able to deal with those things. They'll be happier to begin with. Yeah, it really is.
And won't whinge about the petty stuff.
That's right.
They've been through storms. They've survived. They've had the fish.
Yep.
You go through days without eating? Like I listened to your book, You were fatigued. You said towards the end of it, you were quite fatigued, lacking sugar.
Yeah.
So you put yourself in that situation.
Yeah, you feel, very quickly well, when you start starving, the first 2 or 3 days is the worst because your body's basically using all of the energy inside your bloodstream, which is already sugar. And then after 2 or 3 days, it uses all that sugar up, and then it starts to break down fats to get the sugars.
Yep.
I think it's ketosis. I don't like all of the scientific stuff on that because I think there's a lot of kind of junk out there, and you can get your head too wound up in it. But you do very quickly. The hunger isn't so bad, although you just constantly have food fantasies. But your energy level is just quite low. So if we were sitting here and you were like had to go to the fridge, well, there's no fridge to get a Coke out of.
Yep.
But you'd be like, I really don't want to go to the fridge and get a Coke because I don't want to have to get up off my butt.
Yeah, tired.
Yeah, you're too tired.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like being at altitude if you've ever been climbing up, a mountain in Himalayas. You just don't have the energy. Yeah. So it's very hard to motivate yourself to do stuff. So you have
to fish. To actually gather the food with it. Like, how many days did you have? How was the longest you went without food?
Well, the canoe one, I did if I was this guy, I would have prepared some bush tuck beforehand. So I dried kangaroo meat. I ground up coconut into flour. I took native honey and stuff. It was probably only equivalent to maybe a quarter of what you would normally eat as a daily ration. So most of the time for the first half of the trip, I really didn't eat much at all because I wasn't catching any fish because we've basically overfished the oceans. And once I got past the population centers when I started catching fish. So then I started getting a better diet, but I was still burning a lot of calories. Like sailing burns a lot of calories. You're constantly moving, you're pulling on ropes, you're steering things. And I was basically sailing from sunrise to sunset most days. And then if I'm camping ashore, you're carrying all this heavy stuff. And then when you get ashore, you've got to go and get 3 shots of yourself walking up the beach. And then you still got to go and get food.
Yeah.
It's just, and also raising the sail. Like I needed every ounce of strength to be able to raise the sail, even when the wind was blowing the right way. And I had to time it just right. So so you had to be pretty physically strong.
And that sail was used for like a cover for your.
Yeah, that was my tent. So I'd use
the tent on the shore.
Well. Yeah, it was multi-purpose. Yeah, so I just felt really tired. And then I found on day 34, I think, is when I switched into each day from about day 34 onwards, I would have a period of about 2 hours where I just really had trouble motivating myself to do anything. It wasn't necessarily the motivation, but my body was just saying no. So I needed to climb this hill to look out to see which way to go through a reef. And I tried climbing this hill and I'm just like, my body's just telling me not to do it. I could have done it. I could have forced myself, but my body's saying, don't. Now's not the time. Just sit down, please. And I'd say it's going through some process. It's like I'm in the middle of, I don't know, moving fat from some part of your body into something else. I don't know. Just give it a rest. Like when you've got a diesel car and it goes through that process where it gets rid of the diesel and you've got to run the engine for a little bit.
You got to, sports drive, shoot it out. Yeah.
So, whereas, the next day I went up there and it was okay. It was manageable. So once a day at least, I'd have a 2-hour period where I was just be like, okay, there's not much energy happening. So there was some physiological process that would explain that, and I would just listen to my body and go, okay. But if I had to, like if a crocodile came out and attacked me, I would have access to full strength if I needed it.
Of course.
Because it would use a different kind of energy system. But that would just get longer and longer. Those periods would get longer as you're starved.
Wow. And then what goes through your mind then? Like to stay focused.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just had to constantly be thinking, what's the weather going to do? What am I going to do if the sail breaks here? How am I going to get ashore there? If I do have to get ashore, have I got my stuff sorted? There's so many things to think about. And there's also what's happening with my storyline. Am I getting enough footage? There's a million things to think about. So my mind was
busy.
Yeah. So at the end of it, which you'll see in the film when I finally put it out, like I'm looking at myself in the mirror and my brain is like a steel trap. Like it's as switched on as I've ever been in my life because I have to be to survive.
Yeah.
So people say, oh, your brain would get fuzzy. It's like, nope. In this situation, because I was relying on my brain to survive every day, it was like a steel trap, man.
You're strong.
Like if someone threw a maths problem at me, even though like I'd just be like, I'd come out with it.
Yeah.
Just
is that because you're starving?
I think
you know that the whole fasting thing. They say you're sharper, or you're is it your instincts? You're in survival mode. You're just sharper. Is it that we turn dumb with society?
I think it's survival mode, and so your brain goes, okay, it's obviously you might die if you get this calculation wrong. So I'm going to give your brain a lot of energy, but it's also just agility. Like, you know, when you're not exercised that well, you're not as agile, because my mind would constantly be running a million equations a day. It was just used to solving hard problems. So I could just bang, solve a problem, bang, solve a problem. Even on Alone Australia, like when I was removed, I was sharp as a tack.
You want to talk about that? Yeah.
Yeah.
You would have been. How long were you there for?
They pulled me out at 64 days. So I didn't
64 days.
So I didn't experience, you know how I was talking about that on day 34 of this trip.
Yeah.
I had that 2-hour fatigue thing.
Yes.
I only experienced that for the first time the day before they pulled me out.
Really?
So I went way harder on that one than I did on Alone.
Really? So, so what do they pull you out for? What was there because I saw something after, I don't get to watch it, but the girl won that season. Was that right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't believe they need to pull me out.
No, I don't think they should have pulled him out. Seriously, like 64 days, you're saying you were sharp. Like, what do they pull you out for?
On television, he said his blood pressure is really low again. That's what they said.
Oh, wait a sec. Okay.
I've got to be careful what I say, because
yeah,
I have to sign an NDA. Right. I'm not allowed to talk about what happens.
Yeah, really? Okay.
Yeah. Which I have a problem with, because SBS is a public network.
Yeah. And I know you said I'll get onto the ABC thing too. I saw you post about one of the army guys, the shootings or something.
Yeah, yes.
You got to be careful with commercial TV.
Whoa.
Mainstream.
Are you talking about the guy where they added the gunshot?
Yeah, the ABC. That was...
Yeah. So that guy, he basically got accused of war crimes, effectively.
Yeah.
And then he sued him for defamation and won. And they found that they had added 4 extra gunshots.
How did, for ABC?
Yeah, well, so they appointed an investigator to investigate it, and the person that they chose was a former ABC executive with 23 years experience in the ABC that probably knew everybody that they were investigating, I guess. And a former Commonwealth Ombudsman highlighted that and said that's not appropriate. And of course it's not appropriate. And so they released an interim report saying, oh, nothing, it was just an accident. And they were supposed to release the full report, I don't know, November? Well, I don't know. They're basically, the full report is 4 months overdue. They don't want to release.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
It's because out of the bullet shot.
Yeah, and that's a real issue, because we need like government broadcasters that we can trust.
Yeah.
Like, you know, as AI comes out, like it's hard enough to believe what you see anyway, because you can doctor footage. Like you can get AI to create something that didn't happen and people speak in a certain way. You need to be able to implicitly trust what you see on a government network. So it's, I think they're generally good. I think they probably are a little biased in certain ways, but when they don't allow themselves to be held to account, that's a real issue for trust.
Yeah.
And I just wish they wouldn't do that. They should just be open and transparent.
Yeah, so that's going to affect his life. He got off.
He almost committed suicide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know him, or you just?
No, I don't. I've been following it, and what concerned me is when I saw those media reports come out, I thought, I just gave that full credence that I thought that those journalists, who generally have a good reputation, would have done due diligence. But it turns out they genuinely thought he did something wrong, and they just went back and tried to find evidence to fit what happened, rather than finding evidence and being led that way.
Created it.
Yeah, so I judged that guy quite harshly from what I saw. But when you actually see what happened, you're like, oh, hang on. You know, because I've obviously been in the military. I've flown choppers and had to make decisions and stuff like that. And not luckily, I haven't been in Afghanistan or Iraq. There was a lot more difficulty in the decision making there, and the consequences, people are getting shot a lot more over there.
Yeah.
So more harder decisions to make, and they're hard decisions to make when you've got limited information. And it certainly seemed the decisions he made seemed appropriate, and he was actually telling the guy, don't fire, until the guy met the rules of engagement, and then he said fire. That's appropriate. That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
I think there was some. There was talk of using warning shots, which you're not typically that is not a tactic that you're supposed to use in that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's a separate issue. That's a separate issue to what he was accused of, as I understand it.
Yeah, war crime's a hard one, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
And then you got the mainstream sort of constructing something.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that those come down to investigations. It's very hard to judge what happens on the outside. But, the ABC has a lot of credibility. So if they do a story about you, they have a lot of credibility behind them. So it makes you look pretty bad.
Yeah, I like how you called it out.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly I'm not the only one doing it. And the main thing is I just want them to be open and transparent so they don't do it again.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is like, goes back to, so it's SBS, wasn't it, alone?
Well,
so you can't say certain things of,
Yeah, I think you should be able to go on a government show and just talk about what happened.
Yeah, so you can't talk about it too much. But did you enjoy the 64 days?
Well, once,
What was
I
that
guess, yeah, I mean, I don't use the word enjoy. There's quite a lot of rewarding things about it. And like most of the things I do, like they're not enjoyable at the time. Like there's be few days on that whole 50-day survival expedition where I just tick the box to say I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But once again, they're rewarding. So yeah, there was a lot of good things about that. It's a bit of a funny old landscape where we were down there. Which it's not a pristine landscape by any stretch of the imagination.
Where was that? Was it New Zealand?
No, it was Tasmania.
Tasmania.
Yeah. I mean, So once again, we're not supposed to reveal too much information about that, and there can be some legitimate reasons for not revealing information about where you've been for stuff. I can see a reason for that, but yeah, it's been a lot of environmental damage in Tasmania. Let's put it that way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like forestry, dams, introduced species. Yeah, there's lots of stuff. Yeah. And it's hard to get permission to do those kinds of shows. You're generally not going to get permission to do it in a national park.
So you couldn't go there yourself and do your own thing, Tasmania?
You got to
get acceptance from the Aboriginal tribes to do like Kimberleys and all that.
So I always the Kimberleys I went beforehand and met with them and explained what I was doing, and I think same with the Cape York one. Yeah. And so I just did a trip up there to show them the footage that I'd taken as well, just to, hey, this is the way I was telling the story, any issues, because I just, I don't know what I don't know. So maybe I filmed something that's a sacred site. I didn't think I did, because most of the time I was on the canoe, and there was just a couple of islands. So it was mostly the islands that I landed on. I wanted to speak to the actual traditional owner and say, look, this is your country. And they're like, no, that's cool. But they appreciate being asked.
Yeah, okay. So you did a lot of research, homework beforehand.
Oh, heaps. Well, you kind of have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's good, man. So what's your next adventure? Where's Outback Mike going next?
I've been careful about not coming up with too much of an adventure, because otherwise my mind will focus on that. I'll be going to bed at night time thinking about how am I going to survive the risks on the next one. And really I need to focus on my current, getting the film out about this same trip.
Yeah, okay. So I've been looking. So you haven't got that out yet?
No. I'm just still editing. And
I've been looking for it.
Yeah. Well, I thought it would come out 6 months afterwards, but yeah, I mean, it took a year to write the book. Alone took 6 months out. I did, probably 10 months really of traveling and other stuff. Yeah. And some other work around the house. So yeah, hopefully by the second quarter of this year, I should be touring with it. Yeah. So I'll go around Australia basically, and I've got the canoe on a trailer, and I'll just hire out a venue and do a talk, show the film, show the canoe, do a bit of a Q&A at the end.
Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, promote your book. Yeah, because that looks good.
Yeah, and that's why I wrote the book, so I can sell it when people come and see the film.
Yeah, awesome, man. Do you ever go out and take people along with you? Like, would you ever just go hike and go, I'm just going to disappear for a week?
Oh, yeah.
4 days?
Yeah.
Instead of taking your kids, can you take Nick and myself?
Oh, you mean take... Yeah, well, I guess I've just got to be careful about how I devote the time, because I've got to, I've got to justify why I'm not taking the kids. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Because it only... You can
be the daughter, Yeah, can we be your kids for the weekend?
Yeah, well, I don't know. It depends, because there's so many, because I'm trying to do so many things, I'm quite careful about...
Who to take.
Well, just what I do at the time. And so I'd have to tell the kids, hey, I'm going hiking with some other people, and they'd be like, well, why aren't you taking us? You know what I mean?
Bring them. We'll bring the camera and the drone. Hey, we'll drone for you. Nah, seriously,
Yeah,
because that's what Nick was up for adventure this year. You know, that's why. The reason why, how I got in touch with you, and that's why. Thank you so much too for coming here. Like, because I went through I had a surgery on my neck for my nerve, and I was in bed in hospital, and I was like, things go through your head when you physically can't do anything. You know, I'm a very go-getter sort of person. And I was just like, I saw a loan, I saw your name, I thought I'd just reach out, you know, because I thought nature. I just wanted to, it's like when you can't lift things, can't do things everyday life, I was like, I just want to get to nature.
Yeah.
I just want to go fish, just get out there in the wilderness, ignore everything else, go solitude, you know? And you do that. And what is that? Do you recommend that for people to get out there and put these things away and turn the TV off? And
yeah, for sure.
You know?
Yeah, of course.
And we all get trapped. You know, I was told to relax after my surgery. I have, but life is just busy.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still doing things, you know? Like, you can't get away from it. You get bills come in.
It takes a lot of effort to go camping for the weekend.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Well, yeah, go.
Oh, I had camping, actually. I had the surgery, and then a week later I was going to take my kids camping down at Durras. And I couldn't take them. I wasn't allowed. So my mate picked them up and took them. So we go fishing. It's great. We do that sort of stuff. But I wasn't able to do it.
Yeah.
You know, I was spewing.
Yeah.
But my kids loved it. My son got a big salmon, a big white salmon. He's starting to get into it. Not spear fishing, homemade by you. So he's getting into that sort of stuff. So I love that. I push for that, you know. I think fathers, mums, you know, should take their kids camping, you know, fishing. It's the best way, isn't it?
And it is normal though to go there's so much hurdles to overcome. Like if you go, right, we're going to go camping, you've got to pick a weekend, you've got to deconflict it with, you know, the kids are working or everyone's away or someone's at school or whatever.
Feed the pets, get the pets sorted.
Yeah, there's all that. And then you got to decide what you're doing. And then if you're going hiking, you got to think carefully about if it's going to be too heavy. And so there's a lot of effort to get in that car and start driving.
Yeah.
And that's what stops me doing it most of the time. It's just like the amount of effort. I normally fight through it because I know what the rewards are going to be, but it does take a lot of effort. It sounds like people like the idea, but never have I ever gone, wow, that wasn't worth it after going to that effort.
And you see you're filming, it looks so, you know what I mean?
Oh,
it's so organised and so great. Like, but I mean, like the way you plan, but the effort behind that, just to get that, the effort that comes towards that, and even afterwards, you know.
To film something as well, that takes you've got all of the effort of just going camping without filming it, and then you got to think, okay, how am I going to tell a story, and how am I going to? That's a whole nother level. Yeah. And the only reason I would do that is if I'm trying to make it my career, so I can keep doing more of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it just comes with the territory.
And how's it all going anyway? Because like, you know, we've all like,
basically haven't earned really anything for 5 years.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it takes a lot, doesn't it? For 5 years, he's doing all this. Well, I hope you do.
So do I.
I hope he does. Seriously, you deserve it.
Well, it doesn't. Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter whether you deserve it or not. It matters whether people turn up.
Yeah. Well, you're breaking free, you know, from the matrix they call it.
Yeah, but I also got to be realistic about it, and so it's at the moment it hasn't been economically viable because I haven't really released my product yet.
Yeah.
So I won't really know, but I do think what I've learned over the last 5 years is it's probably smarter just to do YouTube full time.
Yeah.
And put out content every couple of weeks. They won't be such big adventures, but all your eggs won't be in one basket. Yeah. And you really do need repetition if your goal is to make it on social media.
Yeah.
That's why I've been doing a reel once a week on Instagram, partly just to feel like I'm actually putting something out there.
Yeah.
Because when I'm working on the film, nothing sort of comes out till right at the end. But that's been a useful process. I basically devote 1 day a week to making a reel. But that has grown my following quite fast, and that's starting to bring in money too. So like I get bits of sponsorship or a collaboration amount or free stuff.
Yeah.
But it's more the learning process from that, which is useful. So I am fairly confident when I finish this, I will YouTube full time, and I reckon after a few years of that, I'll probably be starting to earn a reasonable amount. By that stage, it's 8 years, which is
it's a lot.
It's a fair time.
Yeah, it's a lot. But
it's a fairly exponential model, though. So like then between years 8 and 11, you're now earning probably a lot. So it's going to come back and repay all those other years that you earn nothing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, just keep going.
Yeah, and then people burn out. So that's the thing. So I've got to be careful I don't do it too hard, so that I need to stop after when I start finally earning some money.
Yeah, and keep humbled. I think you got no problem with that.
Well, yeah. Hopefully I won't, but you never know.
Yeah. Might be the next Top Gun movie, eh? No, it's good, man. I'll definitely like keep in touch and like keep an eye on, man. I really want to see this when it comes out.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're ever back in Sydney, touch base if you ever bring the kayak. Where is it now? The canoe?
In my backyard on a trailer.
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah. So I used it for the book tour. I did a bit of a book tour when the book came out.
Yeah.
And the only reason I kind of rushed the book out is because I just wanted to make use of the exposure I was getting as a loan finished.
Yeah.
So that was useful as a little bit of a test run, just touring with the book. But yeah, when I toured with the film, I don't know, I'll really put a lot into that. I've got to make a really good trailer, and I'll make a bunch of social media posts, which are hopefully useful viral videos in their own right that just happen to advertise what I'm doing.
Yeah. Rather
than just making an ad, which no one wants. If people think it's an ad, they just stroll past it.
Yeah. And what about international wise?
What you mean for adventures or?
Yeah, for adventures, like do tours or something. You know?
Oh yeah. So if Australia works well, I might do New Zealand, the US, and the UK.
Yeah. Go to Canada, Alaska.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they'd be on the list as well.
Take Nick and I.
Yeah,
we'll probably be there one day.
I think shipping containers are pretty expensive to ship around. I was thinking that I would take, if I did the States, I would take the canoe, but maybe I wouldn't. A lot of the time you don't. I don't know. Maybe I'll just turn up by myself.
You'll just make something over there, mate. What was the other one? The one that you did, the Kimberley one. You fabricated out of someone's garage, was it? You fabricated.
A guy very generously allowed me to use his workshop, and I just got 44-gallon drums and welded them together to make mock seaplane floats. So
all this stuff you learned from the army?
No, it's probably only less than a third of my knowledge came from being a survival instructor in the army. The other stuff has just been the adventures I've done as a kid, like making bows and arrows, and then also just like for this one, I had to figure out how to make a woomer and a spear, and then a year and a half of training with it. So it gives me excuses to learn a skill. So I mean, even with these reels, I quite like it because like I go, okay, I'm going to learn how to transfer fire with a Banksia. So I research as much as I can, and then I practice it. And then when I go, I know enough about that now I'll make a video. So it's not that I didn't just make a social media reel. I learned a skill well enough that I could make a reel. Yeah. So all those things like add up on each other and build your knowledge up.
Mm. Like 5 years, mate, you watch. You'll be international. What do you reckon? Hey? And we can say he's been in your studio, Better Media studio. Hey?
Yeah, it's a cool studio.
You like it?
I'm taking notes.
Take notes, mate. He does our course too, you know. You watch. We're going overseas. We're going to take this to Thailand.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're going to do a few things, mate. It's going to be what? It's going to be good. Yeah, a few things. Yeah, we're going to start. We've got a few other podcast guys, and we sort of just this year's a bit of a. Just going to do things, you know.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Why not? Adventure. He wants adventure.
Yeah.
You know, you're the man to show us.
That's good. I mean, I like what I just listened to one or two of your podcasts before coming on, and like I can see that you're interested in stories for yourself, and I think that's what people want to see. Like, they want to see your journey that you're going through.
Well, that's right. What I'm interested, you know.
Yeah.
It's like things change too. You know, I've got other people coming up, which is good. So it's like when I started with Nick, he said, just what's your purpose? Just what a good healing. Good process to learn and grow in podcasts. It's not to be famous or likes. I don't really care much about it. I'm just doing it. You know, I got to meet you, you know, and like I said, and then have an operation and then just reaching out to you, and you're here now. So I'm just going along with it and build up something and see what comes of it.
Yeah. And as we were saying before, like, so I've got my own podcast called the Outback Mike Survival and Adventure Podcast. And
what's it called?
Outback Mike Survival and Adventure Podcast. Yep. And so I get to interview just people, and you have those deep conversations that you wouldn't ever have if you just met someone, because it'd be a bit rude to ask them their life story. Yeah. And you just have these, and I don't know, it's an excuse to have a deep and meaningful conversation. And you get purely selfishly, it's worth doing even if no one listened to any of them.
Yeah, I don't care. People started to, and you don't hear anything, but I don't. It's like, you might not suit certain people, you know? Yeah. I might get someone in, they suit that. So like I'm not, and this is the thing when I started, people go, you're afraid you don't care getting judged. I think that's what it is. It's like, failure, being judged. It doesn't, once you get sort of that off, you sort of feel a bit more free and you sort of don't really care too much about it.
You know? Yeah. You have to get your failures out of the way.
Yeah.
So like I look at the other ones I've done and I go, I could do that better next time. I wouldn't call them failures, but I certainly I listen back to them and go, oh, I probably need to stop interjecting too much, or maybe I'm, I don't know, like I just debrief myself each time.
Yeah.
And so by the time I do episode number 100, I'll be a lot better than if I was just doing number 1.
How many have you done?
20, I think.
Okay. Yeah. So you do so much. I haven't had a chance. I saw that and I haven't had a chance to listen to it. Yeah. So you've got YouTube, you've got your book, obviously, you've got more stuff coming up in your document and your podcast.
Yeah, because a podcast is the only medium that we can really go deeply into an issue.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing I'm getting better at, is going, that's interesting. What medium does it fit? Is a podcast, a reel, or a YouTube video? Yep. And I didn't even know that was a thing beforehand. But now I'm getting better at going, okay, that'll be that. And I hope in future I'll do one activity and I'll know the best way to wrap that as the same event as all 4 or 5 mediums from one activity. And that's just a more efficient way of creating content. Yeah. But it'll be good, like, rather than just, it's all about how you do it in many ways.
And that's why we thought we'd mix it up a bit, go overseas a bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, go for a week, do a bit of content over there, have some fun.
Yep. And that's interesting for listeners, because they're like, oh, cool.
Well, you got people that, can do this, but they haven't had the adventure or the experience, I think that's what counts when you experience something. You can tell the story much better.
Yeah.
Especially.
I interviewed my mate earlier in the week. He's in Antarctica. He's in a tent in Antarctica. He's got Starlink.
Who are your friends?
You can hear it. He's like the tent flapping in the background. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool. Like, just hearing the tent flapping. Yeah.
See, I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
Maybe when I get older and less responsibilities.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
How old are your kids?
Daughter's turning 15 next 2 months' time. My son will be 13.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
so they're getting to it's stages. So they're sort of able to, they can do their own thing, trying to teach them independence. Like I saw your kids on the thing. It was great, just seeing what they do. It's like brilliant.
And I think it's also important to, I'm sure you are, you're starting to plan for when they turn 18 and they leave home. What am I going to do? Because that's such a common story. Like when mothers in particular, you seem to see, like, the kids leave home and they're devastated.
They get midlife. They go, they do. My mum was devastated.
Yeah.
My brother and I left. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I guess you're thinking, well, that'll happen. So how do I make that not happen? And I can already feel like the kids are far more independent and they don't need or want to come with as much now on the stuff that I do.
Yeah.
But that's okay, because they're doing their own thing. And so I can already feel that the time I'm spending with them is already getting less and less, which everybody says.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be a surprise. You don't want to get surprised. And then that makes me go, right, well, we've only got another 2 years before my son finishes year 12. So, what am I going to do in the next 2 years? Okay, we're going to do this and that and that. Because after that, see you, mate.
Yeah, see you, mate. Yeah, this is what you plan for. This is what I've said before in my previous, being divorced as well, like you sort of, lost 50% of the time at the age of 5 and 7. So I've already sort of been dealing with that. You know? Where most parents are like, their kids leave and they go, what the hell, what do I do with my life now? And then they argue, divorced, what do we do now? They lose each other. I think and I find my kids have come closer to me, just starting this. It's like something for myself, doing stuff for myself, going overseas for myself. Take them along, they offer them everything else, but doing something for myself to show them that I'm not just there serving and just waiting for them to grow up. It's like you still got to live your life.
Yep.
And that shows them, like yourself, like, you say your son's not really involved, but I think he'll come around. He'll probably start to, like, Dad, take me on this, And,
well, he already does that, but he's just not as hardcore into, like, I don't know, making bows and arrows. But he does want to do that stuff. He just doesn't want to make bows and arrows.
Yeah. Get it delivered now anyway.
But, what you're saying there about the kids, like, and divorce, like, I haven't been through that, but it must be incredibly difficult to have to manage all that.
And, dude, yeah.
Yeah. And it really, it's...
I could write a book.
You probably could, yeah. I mean, really, society isn't set up well for guys in those situations.
No.
Like it seems like the custody system, the way that assets are allocated afterwards, the judgment... I don't know, like, guys are generally, I think, seen as the less worthy by virtue of their gender.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, if we want equality, is that equality?
This is and then less benefits too, and that's what I mean when it comes to that sort of stuff. Yeah, you think, wait a sec, yeah, quality, yeah, we should get that. But I've proved to myself I can be the best housewife ever.
Yeah.
And you know, good mother in a way, in a weird way, because you have to sort of find that other side. That's the adapting,
Yeah.
right? You know, you go through stages where you're like, far out, how do I deal with this? You know, I want to be able to go free and have the house looked after, and I can go, you know, be a Viking and go find my treasures, you know, and come back, tell my stories. But you got to sort of, you got your responsibilities.
I'm clean all the time. Like, I mean, like I think it'd be 50-50 at least for, you know, the way we do jobs, because I'm the one working from home at the moment.
Yeah.
So,
you're doing the cooking and stuff.
Yeah, at least 50%.
Dad, no more bush tucker. Can you stop feeding us bush tucker?
Yeah. Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, I think it's there's an assumption that guys aren't capable of cooking, or they're not capable of cleaning, or not that perhaps they're not capable, or they just don't because they're too lazy. It's like, well, I don't know, I do a fair bit of cleaning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
I can handle it.
I mean, I think the thing is, there might be some guys that maybe don't have the right attitude for it.
Wow.
But I kind of feel like that's the stereotype that's always used.
Yeah.
And that's just not representative of all males.
Yeah. That's what I like to try and blend in. You know, like you said, I think we all should get along, really. There's a bit of a flip around now happening, you know.
Yeah. You mean
well, you know, this...
You're talking about the most recent flip
around. The Trump thing.
Yeah.
He's ticking off everything. What do you think of that?
Oh, well, he's winding back a whole bunch of stuff. I haven't been following it really closely.
Yeah.
But there's I know he's pushing back against the trans, all
the woke stuff.
Yeah. And so that's quite an interesting thing. Like, I reckon if you were, I would probably be classed as someone who would be on the woke the side. Like, if you're going to have left and right, I think I'm actually fairly in the middle, actually. But I'd probably be closer to that side of things. But I think the people that are down that far end don't realise what they're doing. They don't realise that there are many things that have gone too far, and there's a resentment, and the problem with that is that it allows, like, extreme right to then take it back a long way. There's this big match that goes like this. Yeah. But there's a consequence if you're not honest about things at any level, and people end up getting upset about it and rebelling. And
there's a lot of corruption, a lot of stuff coming out now, especially after COVID. Yeah, it's about mainstream and stuff, about, you know, ABC and SBS and that. There's a lot of stuff. I reckon online is sort of more viewed. You know, flicking through reels. Yeah. YouTube.
Yeah, it's hard to know where to get your news from. Yeah. And that whole thing about, you know how Facebook just removed their censors, I think they call them, the fact checkers.
Yeah, that's the... You know.
Yeah, it's who
he's coming back. Yeah, he's coming back.
Well, yeah, he's come back. So he's gone to extreme. He did quite a good podcast interview the other day, Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah. And he did come across as a pretty reasonable guy. And he said, yeah, we tried that and it didn't really work, and they're going to a different system now. And I think that the new system, they're going to the community notes or something like that, which I'm not even on Twitter or X or whatever it's called. Yeah. That's the way that they do it, apparently. Yeah. But it's basically, it's a little bit like Wikipedia. Yeah. But
he's got no choice, though, see? Yeah. Well, he's admitted Biden's the government sort of went to him to get to tell him to cut the freedom of speech, and that's why X has come back. So he's gone back. He's backpedaling.
Yeah, he felt uncomfortable by what he was being asked to do by the government. Yeah, because their intention was probably good, but they were requiring him to delete stuff, which was true. So, and so that's the problem with that. That's the problem with having a fact checker. Yeah,
but would that have changed if Trump didn't get in? So that's the thing.
Don't know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, what is it like? This is the thing. Yeah. This is why, like, you can look into politics and everything, which I did after COVID. Now I sort of backed off a bit because he can't. What do you do? You can't do anything about it. Yeah. This is why, like, people should break free of that and get in the wilderness. You know, start building canoes in their backyard.
Yeah. Eh? Yeah.
Good. So where do you next? You'll go? Whereabouts do you live anyway?
Port Stephens, so it's kind of like 2.5 hours to the north.
Yeah, okay. Yep. So you back? You were Sydney for 2 days. You were saying you had something on. You went and saw was it Bear Grylls?
Yeah, I just did that because I'm going to be doing my own roadshow, and so I was mostly keen just to see the way the production of the live performance was. So that was useful. Yeah, and I thought they did a good job of that. I was at the convention centre, and there's a it's really, there's a fair bit of illusion that goes on with the whole man versus wild thing, right? And I was just wanting to know whether you just hear about things as they really happened, or it was a fairly vanilla version. It was kind of like, I guess, looking at the man versus wild episode, but it was like a theatrical version in a way.
Yeah.
It wasn't a down and dirty about what really happens.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I mean, I think he's a good guy, and I think he's a humble guy too. And he supports the Scouts, and there must have been, half the audience must have been Scouts, because when he mentioned the Scouts, like half the audience kind of went, yay.
Yeah. So he's good for it, but a more commercial.
Yeah, it's very commercialized kind of production, kind of mainstream years kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
He's getting older now too, isn't he? How old's he now?
I don't know.
He's getting grey hairs, mate.
Yeah, like me. He'd be in his 50s for sure.
Yeah, because you did his course too, didn't you? Didn't you do a course? No?
No. Oh, it's my friend Naomi instructs on his courses.
Okay, that's probably okay.
Yeah. But I mean, when he started all that stuff, he wasn't a highly experienced survival person. Oh. Like when I read his book, and I might be wrong, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. But he was basically in the reserve SAS for about a year.
Yeah.
So when I did my chopper course in the Army, I had two SAS guys. One was an officer, one was a non-officer. And so I saw both sides of the SAS. They weren't, just because they're in the SAS, they didn't know anything about survival.
Yeah.
Because that's not their primary role of the SAS, in Australia at least. And I mean, their primary job is to do things like counter-terrorism or long-range reconnaissance. It's not to be an expert in survival. Like, that's just a course that you do for a short time just to help you get you out of the poo and get you found again.
Yep.
Whereas the portrayal is, anybody in the SAS is going to have a knife in the teeth and be able to do every survival skill ever, right?
Yeah.
And so that they play off those assumptions, but those assumptions aren't real. And I know what happened on his Kimberley one.
Yeah.
Because I asked, how did Bear Grylls get permission to kill it, catch that snake and kill it? And then I spoke to the Department of Primary Industries, and they're like, well, that snake was flown in by helicopter, and that snake was actually roadkill. It was certified elsewhere in the state because it's illegal to kill that wildlife.
Yeah,
so in order to show what happens on the show, and so I think I don't want to shit can him. I'd say the way that he would justify that is I'm telling a story, and it's a little bit of theatre. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you're being told something that didn't happen, and in a way, you're also promoting the capture and kill of protected wildlife, you know. And so this is probably 20 years ago, and things have matured, and I don't think they would do that. In fact, I watched another version of that, and they removed the one where they kill a snake. Okay. And so you've got to be careful about judging things that happened in the past. Yeah. You know, like TV was more innocent just 20 years ago. We keep getting more sophisticated and more nuanced. It's not real though. Yeah, the realness
of it. He's getting flown in and he's roadkill and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
you're the real deal, Outback Mike.
Well, I try to. There's things that I did with that which are corner cutting a little bit, and I try to highlight those things. Like I used plastic water containers because I had 150 kilos of gear. Yeah. That sunk the canoe down so much I had to save space. So because I was carrying 150 kilos of camera gear, I decided to cut a corner and use plastic water containers rather than making a big bulky container for myself.
And the water thing wasn't. You filled up the water too. What was that one? You used a bag. You filled up a water instead of using a barrel. I think the weight as well, wasn't it?
I had a water barrel just because he had a water barrel. And it kind of looks cool. Yeah. Yeah, but that's all right. I mean, I'd cut corners here and there, but I just think it's important to tell the audience which ones you cut. So I don't know, I just think it's important. Yeah, well, you can find rubbish like we did in Panama. It's quite disgusting, wasn't it? Yeah. The island there. Oh, the Cape Yorks. Plastics, Cape Yorks just where does that come from? Oh, it's all washed up there on the island. Yeah, I mean, it depends a lot on if it's a prevailing wind, like the trade winds, it'll just be coated. I mean, most of the islands of the Barrier Reef and the coastline, it's thick with rubbish all the way up. So throw your rubbish in the bin, people. Yeah, I don't know. I think a fair bit of it does come from Asia. I'm just recalling other people who've done research. I have not, fact checked this myself. But yeah, but the thing is, it doesn't break down, so it just floats around. Yeah, and then it gets washed up. So yeah, it's a shocker out there. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's pretty bad. All right, well, mate. Anything else? Not really. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, good, eh? Mate, I'm sorry. Thank you so much. Seriously, thank you so much for coming in. So genuine also with what you've done to reply and then pop in and worked out well. Yeah. And can we let us know when you come back?
Keep in touch, please. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll come and check it out. I don't know. I'll bring Nick. Come and check out the to promote your next documentary.
Yeah. Well, when I launch when I have make my bookings for wherever I'm going to screen in Sydney, I'm probably going to live off Sydney Harbour for a week on the canoe, just living off Bush Tucker, and make a YouTube series out of that. And hopefully I should be able to get media coverage from that, like some bit of TV, maybe newspapers, radio, and then that can kind of be the advertising to say, hey, come and see this canoe in the film.
Yes.
So I'll be on the harbour for probably a week sometime.
Well, that's excellent. Can you let us know?
Yeah, sure. It'll be
throw rocks at him.
Yeah.
I'll bring a snake from somewhere else.
Yeah, bring a red snake from Woolies or something.
Yeah. And were you going to sleep in a swag tonight as well, or?
I'll probably just drive. I'm going to my friend Lucy's thing tonight at the Orpheum. So she's hiking from Argentina to Alaska. She's kind of 2/3 of the way through, and she's just come back to Australia to renew her US visa. So I hiked with her in Guatemala for a bit. So
was that the volcano?
Yeah.
Oh, that was awesome.
Yeah, so she's doing a thing tonight at the Orpheum, so I'm going to jump up and just help her out with her Q&A from the questions from the audience.
Yep.
And then I'll probably just drive home after that. Yeah,
that's awesome, man. You must meet a lot of people around the world, mate.
Yeah, you do. That's really cool, and that's what you're already experiencing. You just get to meet.
Oh, this is it, man.
And it's not like oh wow, it's not a box tick.
Yeah.
It's just that you just get to meet interesting people.
Yeah,
just for the sake of it.
I love it, man. I love it. Being here with Nick, he's done a few too. Met some good people too. Nick brings on, and it's good, mate. Well, thanks, Mike.
No worries. Thanks for the chat. Appreciate it.
We'll hopefully catch up next time. I'll see you in the harbour.
Yeah. Bring me some food, but I can't eat it because I'll be living off Bush Tucker. So don't bring me some food.
Just message me. I'll slide some under. Hey, slide some under.
I might get you to come and charge some camera batteries.
Actually, Nick, we'll help me out. Yeah, we'll be there, mate. We'll charge them. Cool. You got your satellite anyway. Your solar panels, mate, hanging off your bag.
Yeah. I'll be right. I should be able to handle myself in Sydney Harbour for power.
All right, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No worries.
All right, beautiful.